So, have you ever stopped to think about what happens to all the technology that runs our world when it gets old? Today, we're diving into how businesses can make their most critical tech last way longer, which saves a ton of money and cuts down on waste. And our guide for this entire explainer is an amazing report from Virtualization Options LLC. They're a Colorado-based tech research and advisory group that has basically created a complete roadmap for this. And we're going to walk through it.
It really is a simple question, isn't it? But the answer has these massive, massive implications. I mean, we're talking about the servers, the routers, the storage systems, the very backbone of our digital lives. But what happens when that backbone starts to get a little creaky?
Well, the first and most obvious thing is that it just fails. A critical server goes down, a network switch just gives up, and bam, suddenly everything grinds to a halt.
And that failure? It is incredibly expensive. We're talking billions, with a B, of dollars lost globally to downtime every single year. And on top of that, you've got the huge cost of constantly buying and installing brand new equipment to replace what broke.
And beyond the money, there's the environmental cost. All that discarded hardware creates this growing mountain of e-waste, which is just full of materials that are both really valuable, but also pretty hazardous. So you have this perfect storm of high costs, major business risk, and environmental damage. The problem is crystal clear, but is there a smarter way to do this?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the experts at Virtualization Options LLC really shine. They argue that the solution isn't just about buying new stuff all the time. It's about being strategic. They put it perfectly, saying that with a comprehensive approach, companies can slash costs, boost reliability, and just become way more efficient and sustainable. So, let's break down what that approach actually looks like.
Okay, first up, we have to understand the life of the hardware itself. You got to think of it this way. Every single piece of tech, from the biggest server to the smallest switch, is on a ticking clock from the moment it's powered on.
And that life cycle pretty much breaks down into three main phases. It all kicks off with the initial purchase and deployment. Then you have the long operational phase, right? That's where the hardware is doing its job day in and day out. But, eventually every device hits that period of decline where performance starts to drop until it's finally time for retirement.
So what determines how fast that clock is ticking? Well, it's not just about age. Pushing a machine with heavy workloads, that's going to accelerate wear and tear. The environment it lives in plays a huge role. I'm talking heat, humidity, and dust. They are the silent killers of electronics. And of course, the quality of the hardware you buy in the first place, and keeping its software updated. Those are absolutely crucial for a long, healthy life.
All right, so now that we get the life cycle, let's talk about our first line of defense, preventive maintenance. This isn't about some complex, high-level strategy. This is about foundational care. The simple, proactive stuff that makes a massive, massive difference.
There are really only two ways to approach maintenance. You can be reactive, which is basically waiting for something to break and then scrambling around in a panic to fix it. That path almost always leads to chaos and really expensive downtime. Or there's the smarter path, the one our source champions, being proactive. This means doing regular maintenance to stop things from breaking in the first place.
And what does that proactive care actually look like? Honestly, it's not rocket science. We're talking about things like regular inspections, physically cleaning machines to get rid of performance-killing dust, making sure everything stays cool, and of course, keeping all the firmware and software up to date. Heck, even just extending the warranties can be a super smart move to protect that investment for longer.
Okay, so physical maintenance is the foundation. That's clear. But to really truly squeeze every last drop of value out of your hardware, you need to work smarter. This next part is all about strategic optimization. It's about changing how you use the hardware to get the absolute most out of it.
A huge piece of this puzzle is workload consolidation, and it's powered by this amazing thing called virtualization. Just think about it for a second. Instead of having 10 different physical servers, each one just chugging along at maybe 15% capacity, virtualization lets you run 10 virtual servers on a single powerful machine. Right away, you're reducing physical strain, you're slashing energy costs, and you're getting so much more value out of every piece of tech.
So how do you actually find these opportunities to optimize? It's simple. You follow the data. The process is really methodical. First, you're monitoring performance in real time. You're looking at CPU, memory, network traffic. Then you dig into the system logs, hunting for any error messages or warnings. Next, you analyze the workloads themselves to see what's causing all the stress. And finally, you use all that great information to plan for the future and fix bottlenecks before they cause a total meltdown.
But look, no matter how well you maintain and optimize your gear, everything eventually reaches the end of its main job. But here's the key insight, the real game changer. End of life does not have to mean end of value. It's just the beginning of what we can call the hardware afterlife.
And this is where the thinking gets really transformative. Instead of just a one-way ticket to the landfill, you've got this whole spectrum of valuable options. Old hardware can be refurbished and used for less critical jobs. It can be repurposed for things like testing and development. It can be donated or resold to give it a second life somewhere else, or, only as a final resort, it can be responsibly recycled. Disposal becomes a strategic choice, not a dead end.
And when recycling is the only path left, it has to be done right. There are 3 steps here that are just non-negotiable. First, and this is a big one, data security. Every last bit of sensitive information has to be securely wiped or physically destroyed. Second, you have to be in compliance with all the local and national e-waste laws. And third, you have to partner with certified recyclers who actually know how to safely recover the valuable materials inside.
So when you put all of these pieces together, the proactive care, the smart optimization, and this really thoughtful approach to the hardware afterlife, you end up with more than just a list of chores. You get a completely new philosophy for how to handle technology sustainably.
And here is the big picture payoff, the why this all matters part. This philosophy saves a ridiculous amount of money on new equipment. It prevents those costly outages that can absolutely cripple a business. It makes the entire IT operation run faster and smoother. It dramatically cuts a company's environmental footprint, and it protects the organization from the massive legal and financial fallout of a data breach. I mean, it's a win-win-win-win.
And all of that brings us to one final question. We just walked through how a huge organization can think strategically about its technology to save money, improve performance, and protect the planet. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How can each of us start applying that same smart, sustainable thinking to the technology in our own lives?